Hi, and welcome back to video 6 of our evaluation video series. And I'm going to go ahead and jump into the deep end here and go ahead and cover a couple of topics related to the containers, just a couple more things on the containers. I'm going to cover exporting containers, cloning containers, importing containers, and then I'm going to step into the network elements for a minute and how the device containers work, and then I'm going to probably drop into another video and go into the discovery. So first, to begin with, now we've kind of gotten to this point here, and all of this literally should have taken us about 10-15 minutes with some planning ahead of time. But I wanted to go for a few updates I've made before I kind of jump into this that you may want to do as well. So first, before we go through the next steps in the containers specifically and kind of doing anything in bulk, we have a number of different policies and what we'll call rules that are defined at the container level that, as you've seen, control the valid block types, the allow from allocation from parent, the root, and some other values. After we've built this large container model, let's say we do have a in-depth container model. If we needed to go back and modify that, well, that's just administrative. We have a couple of ways of doing it, but it makes more sense if we can plan, kind of model out how we want our infrastructure to work ahead of time, make that look like how we want it for a specific site, maybe down to like what I'm going to do here with just Atlanta. And then we're going to go in and we're going to do some exports. We're going to get that data. And then I'm going to show you how we can quickly move around and do some things here. So I want to show you a couple different ways that this might work, and you can pick and choose how this works out best for you. So I've gone in and I've added a couple of other types here that I'm going to use for Wi-Fi management. We've now got data, and they all child to the private region. So we're going to leave that pretty much as it is. And in terms of the container structure, I've gone in and I've added those additional container policies, and I've effectively made this branch of the Southeast and Atlanta how I want to model all of my sites, using Southeast as a region, which I could then do Midwest, Central, West, and then I could have beneath those their particular airport codes, which is what I'm going to do in this case, the IATA codes for travel. And I'm going to use their airport codes as kind of the city reference. And let's say that we're like a transport company and we have offices at the airport, as an example. So the first thing here is, again, with the valid block types down in our Atlanta area, we're going to have private data management Wi-Fi, and we're going to have public types if we have a public address. I've enabled all of our types for device types. We shouldn't have any allow root creation here, but we do need to have the ability to look to the parent, i.e. Southeast, and say, if I don't have local space, give me some more block space out of the available aggregations. And then at the subnet level, I'm using user-definable field template that I can set up the VLAN, point of contact name, email, phone number, things like that. And then at the device templates, I'm using the same. Now, at the container level, there is the option that you can specify DNS domains, and you can basically restrict that domain to that container as being the only valid DNS domains for any of the subnets or sites beneath it. So there is some inherence here that you can set up and enable this to make things maybe a little bit easier, or kind of free form allow it, as we're going to do here as well. Okay, so that's real basic here, but you may also want to go in and I set the notes, some other details here, and so on. So I've made all of the changes I really want, and so effectively there are some other cities, and I'm going to do one here. And what I want to do is I want to say Atlanta is the site. And I just want to basically clone that, and I'm going to add a new site, and I'm going to say now that this is Savannah, and the address here, I may say Savannah, Georgia. Actually, that's the city. And we'll say Savannah, Georgia here. And I'm going to go ahead and submit this, refresh, and now we have, at the same location where it was cloned, a container now that has the same policies of everything we need for that location, just a different name. So by cloning, we can easily do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different sites, and as you see, we could do this in a matter of seconds. The bigger challenge comes in when we need to do very large imports or larger imports or if you want to kind of build out the full structure as we might in a full import. So what I recommend you do, and this is kind of why we're doing this here, and I'm going to delete this because I already have it, is I I want to take this same model and I want to reproduce it for all of the sites within the Southeast, and then I want to create the other regional sites and their containers. And so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to go out to the executive, and this is kind of where we're going to jump into the deep end. So we need to run an export, at least for the container structure today. And I'm going to say we need to run an export. We don't. We could copy this over, but there is enough complexity that it's easier to take what's there already and modify it. So under the opt and control etc directory, where I am now, there is a number of different command lines that can be run for just about every type of data element in the application. Every one of these types allows for filters so that you can filter down, i.e. global for all the data or down to a site, subnet, container, IP address. And what we want to do here is we want to run the export container, and I'm going to do this with the help. And this will show the various filters that we want for this. Now I'm going to use basically everything. So by not specifying a filter, it's going to capture everything. But we can tell it that we want to look for block addresses that are in the container, a cloud type, user-definable fields and values, all the way down into the names, the parents, and so on. Now, to keep it simple, we just need to do an export, and we need to do this as incadmin, or any other super user, if you will. And we want to use the -F option to give us an output to a directory. So we can do just /tmp if you don't want to create the exports as an example. And we want to give it a name, which will be, name.csv, which is the format. This will create the output, which then is, in that file that we're going to pull in a minute. Now, there's one other thing that I want to show, kind of a little tip, that on the executive, if you will navigate to opt in control, using WinSCP is the easiest way to do it, I found. Opt in control etc CLI templates, you're going to find a list of files or templates that are used for all of these different functions. There'll be an XLS and a CSV. The XLS has documentation in the column headers that help you understand what the documents are. And these column headers in these various documents or in these templates are going to match to the CLI API guide and how those columns are formatted. So effectively, there's a document to help you build these from scratch. You can copy these over to your workstation and then open these up. And we're going to do that here with this one. Let's just go ahead and do the import container and download it. Okay. And if we were to open this up, just so we can see it without anything else in it. Oh, actually, I've already got one in it. So let's go ahead and grab that file here, but let's go ahead and download our file if we haven't. I'm going to grab this here. Rename my existent. Let's see, this one's already open here. Okay, let's just grab this and download it. Okay, so in the containers too, there's a couple things. First, let me save this off. I'm going to open this up. So in this particular file, containers 2 of the export, it's going to give us, effectively, let me just pull this over here. It's going to give us a CSV output of all of the different containers. And these are basically the import format we need to import this information. Now, in the export itself, it doesn't really give us much in terms of the headers. So, and the reason I'm showing you the templates is that you can go now to the template You can open up that template. You can then copy and paste this into its respective columns, and now we'll have the templates with the documentation that we can then understand what it is we're doing. Now, the sorting of this might also be changed. You may need to change this around as you walk through this, but I'm going to hopefully be able to explain this hierarchically how we're going to build this out. So really what we want to do is we don't need to do a whole lot because we want to duplicate this data. We already know that the Atlanta site in the southeast has what we want, and so we want to effectively duplicate this particular row that's going to give us the site information, right? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to copy this, and I'm going to add in those additional codes that I was referring to earlier. And just copy each row, and then we're going to go over the lines and what it is we're doing. So I'm going to do 1, 2, let's do 3, let's do 4. Okay. CHS. And we have BHM, and we'll do one more JAX here. Okay. So effectively, the container name is the fully qualified name last deleting slash. So this is in control. So if you look at the root, and then you have the next layer down is organization A, then you have Southeast, and then you have Atlanta, which these other ones will be the ones we're going to create. Now, since this one already exists, I'm just going to comment these because we're not actually going to, and actually, no, we're going to do this a little differently. So we're going to keep that, and we're just going to modify it. So the next thing we're going to do here is we're going to copy this, and then I'm going to modify it. Let's just comment that. We're not going to re-import these since they already exist. We'll just comment them. We'll do this all the way down to the Atlanta, and then everything else will leave intact. And then we're going to go down to the next section here, and I'm going to do, this is Central. And here, we could do a whole bunch of other things. I'm just going to change it. But now we need to change the hierarchy here then to be central as well. Now let's just take this out because I'm not going to have a lot. And then we're going to change some of the verbiage here as well. We need to modify this around a little bit. So a little bit of finagling of this. Now I tend to do this with scripts, meaning I'll take a spreadsheet. I know exactly what I need to do, and I'll run through hundreds of sites and generate output and containers and other things here. But by doing this manual, this is what we're looking for. So really it is, again, you're telling it, here is the parent that I'm going to attach to for each of the left-hand side containers. So this then is going to go to org A, it's going to create central. This then is going to create central MGM, and its parent is central. So kind of reading that all the way through the list. The parent, of course, is the parent that we're looking at. The type is still logical in this case, but we're going to touch on this in this later video. And then we have rule 1. Now, this is where we get into some complexity and why we want to have all of these policies for user-defined fields set up ahead of time. Rule 1 specifies what are the valid block types for each container, and if with a vertical bar, specify the user-definable field template that's used for those subnets. And that sets the container policy for the block type information template. Since we've already built this, we already know everything's already in place, and we can copy this at the different levels that we need, respectively, without having to do anything else. Rule number 2 says, where can I create root blocks? So by looking at this, you have a root block with a slash, and then you would have, in this case, private public. We're not going to allow any others here, so it's only in that one location at our top organization level. Now, rule 3 is the allow allocation from parent. So again, based on the way we've already defined our policies, at each level, it looks up to the parent for its respective address space. So starting looking to the organization and then to the region for both the private region and public addresses. Okay, this is our empty space here. And then again, as we go down to the regions. Now the next column here, rule number 4, we're not going to allocate, but this is for SWIP, for registrars and providers to manage SWIP net names effectively. And then you can determine which blocks require a SwiftNet name from a policy perspective, which I'm going to somewhat avoid in these conversations, but note that that's there and we have ability. Rule number 5 is the number and the type of devices that are valid at any one of these levels. Now, because we really don't have any subnet layer up until this point here, we could remove these, but I'm just going to leave them there in case we ever end up with a subnet. But this string can get very long here, as you see. So you have, depending on your names, it's the device, vertical, the user definable field, slash, the device type. These device types also must pre-exist. So anything we're doing here, we build it ahead of time and then set it. The information template basically says for each container, it's going to have a container UDF, and then it's going to use these user definable fields, which are either set or not set for each of these containers when it imports them. So the rest of this, it's just kind of looking at some of the values. They can be, modified or left intact. And mostly you're just going to be leaving it intact because we're, again, just trying to clone or mimic what we see out there and try to build it out a little bit more. So I'm going to do one more here. Let's do Midwest. And again, we need to change it in this location. And we need to change it here. Okay. So I am then going to go ahead and save this as a CSV file. One thing about the CSV file, I have to tell you about this even. So let's put this in temp here. It might make it easier. When you save it as a CS file, it's not just CSV. There are different formats for CSV even. Some have control characters. So if you do UTF-8, it has a control character and it will not work. Macintosh might even do things a little differently with CSV. You need to explicitly select CSV MS-DOS when you save this file. And we're going to go ahead and save that for CSV. Now, what I'm going to do here, I'm not going to save my VM yet because I think it's small enough that I could still manually do this. But if I were doing something in bulk, meaning I was going to do this, and actually I'll just do it now. We'll go through and do this. In the IPControl etc directory, there is a MySQL export, and we're going to come back to this, by the way, command that just when run will log into the database, export it, and create a zip gz file, tar gz file, and puts it into IPControl temp. And in that file, I could copy that offline, load it into another database, or if I needed to reload this database, I could drop it, reload, import this, and it would recover up to that point. Okay. Now I'm going to try and import this sheet, and if everything goes as well as I hope should do, I might get a notice here and there. But I'm going to go ahead and run it, and then in this particular setting here, you're going to select the file, and you're going to upload it. A whole bunch of stuff out here. What's going on there? Import containers, and then we'll upload. Now, once you've uploaded the file, scroll to the bottom and you'll click the next, and you'll see here that it's done a check. You would see a whole bunch of red and errors if for any reason this was an error, meaning it would fail the import. So it does a check of the fields and the format. You can then tell it to go next, and then just for reference, all tasks can run with an immediate schedule or at a scheduled time and date. So if you wanted this to run in the future, you could do it on a change control window. I want this to be run immediately. This then uploads it to the executive. It runs the CLI to import this data into the executive. It tracks any of the errors, any rejects, and then any error reject files that we can retry in that regard. So I'm going to just kind of get impatient here in a minute, click, and we'll see what we got here in just a second. So far, it looks okay. Yeah, there you go. So it's complete, which is pretty good first try. And if I go then look to my containers, I'm then going to see these containers. They're all sorted alphabetically, and then you'll see the various sites that we've created. Now, to take this a little bit further here then, you could set up, it's like kind of what we've done here, we could go in and create a site allocation template, And in this site allocation template, we're going to call this regional template. And it's going to be for a logical container device or logical branch. And in this, we want to effectively say that at each of those cities, we're going to tell it to use a private region, IPv4, and we were doing 16. I'll stick with that, although this could be changed. And then you would have aggregate as a type. We're not going to do anything else here at the site template for any of this, because this is all just an aggregate block. And so what we could do then is either through API or CLI, we could walk over to the regions themselves, like Midwest, say add site, select our regional template, and hopefully everything's in place. We just do submit. We'll go to central, do the same thing, add child, actually add site. Regional template, hit, we're done. All right, so now what I've done with that is I let IPControl, which is what it's designed to do, to make the automatic calculations for me. So by default, it does the next best fit contiguous for IPv4, and it does a sparse allocation for IPv6. So what we want to do here is what we told it to do is we said, based on this block type, give me the next available aggregate that's going to be used for site. And then we're going to go down to the subnet levels, which we could then have and will modify. Let's go to our site template. And let's do a couple things here with a small branch. Let's add private management, IPv4. We might say this is going to be a 29, best fit. We don't necessarily do anything here, but we can. Let's go ahead and add these as well. Just in case anybody's looking at the documentation. We don't know what the gateway will be yet here, but we'll say that we're going to need to grab the status, and this would be in use deployed. And then let's grab, say, a Wi-Fi v4. This might be, say, 23, in use deployed. And in this, we may have that this is going to use, say, a 1-hour lease. It might then have your standard ISC options. We would have our 4 domains, our options here, and then our 2 DNS servers. And this then would create the DHCP scope that we need for all of these values, and then could allocate that. And then we could further say, go in and create the gateway and all of the reserved addresses and scopes here. So I'm going to go ahead and create that. And so we'll go back, and now that we have this container, we have this branch, we built the regional, and I'm going to go to the next site and just say, now just add the site. And I hope that everything is in line. I can change these values. I can add the VLANs and other notes, which I'm just going to come back to. And so we don't have our DHCP. And so now here's where we're going to have to keep track of this. So if we set up that there's going to be a scope, we need to have the DHCP server defined for the subnet. So I need to go back and verify a couple of things. And we have the subnet there, same subnet. It's this one here. All right, so that's the one I think we have that there already. Okay, little edits here. Let's go back and just verify everything again. Make sure we've got it. So anywhere we have DHCP set, we should have our primary DHCP servers. So that one looks okay. Let's look at this private management here. I don't see any allocation template. I don't see any DHCP set as well. And let's go here. This one does have that. Oh, we don't have a set here. Okay, so now we would set that here, and this pulls our failover as well. So now we should be okay. Now let's go back and let's apply that. So we can effectively then say add site, and we should be able to build a site. Okay, and then we have the three subnets. And again, we could go down and repeat this cookie cutter process because we built these policies to, be a cookie cutter process. So that's a long way of getting to all of this here, but it does kind of cover on a couple concepts. And I will say that there are maybe 4 or 5 different types of exports and commands that we deal with at the command line interface level, only because they don't typically, they aren't run daily. They aren't something that you're going to do daily. So those are going to be at the command line, and those are going to be typically your root blocks, if you want to export those, the containers, and then you might get into like network services, routers, things like it. Okay, so this is the concept: sites, templates, those options, and then cloning and doing what you need to help you build out this infrastructure moving forward. Now, before we quit this video, I'm going to just touch on it a second. I'm going to come back to the next one. I think we need to kind of end this one here. I'm going to touch on network elements. And network elements are routers or layer 3 switches that allow us via SNMP to discover them for subnets, interfaces, and to be able to pull data back into IPControl. So that's going to be our next video, and that'll be coming up here shortly. Join us again, and we'll just pick up from here. Take care.